secondo me, questo è il mio pensiero personale, io pure nel senso famiglia, la priorità della famiglia, quindi non la dovevi fare.
Ecco, no. Fai una bella ripresa e tu sei il telefono buono poi per domani, Ferma. Vai. Io sono
You're watching Sky News. These are live images of Rome. We are about to see the King make his way, as you can see from this procession of vehicles, towards the Vatican. This is going to be a remarkable and very historic moment today. For the first time in almost 500 years, half a millennia, a British monarch publicly praying with the Pope during the Vatican. The King and the Queen arrived in Rome last night, and they are going to take part in this really rather remarkable side-by-side, where the head of the Church of England and also the leader of the Catholic Church will pray together. The first time since the Reformation, of course, 500 years ago in the mid-1500s. And this is the first time the King has met Pope Leo since he was elected to the role of Pope. The 69-year-old was born in Chicago, spent many years in Peru, and has been known to speak warmly of the King already. There is going to be a royal kind of confrature also given to the King, a mark of the respect and the togetherness and the friendship between the Vatican, the Holy See, and also the royal family as well. And like I say, this is a pretty historic moment. The King is said to be greatly looking forward to this opportunity, praying alongside the Pope. And the King and the Queen landed for their second visit in Rome this year. But it's the first state visit to the Holy See and the first meeting with the new Pope. And I can bring you the statement in its entirety. A spokesperson for the royal family saying His Majesty greatly looking forward to meeting Pope Leo, celebrating together the historical significance of this visit, representing as it does a landmark relationship between the Church of England and the Catholic Church, between the UK and the Holy See. When they arrived in Rome last night, just after 6 p.m. or so local time, the couple welcomed on the runway by the British ambassador to the Vatican and also a colonel of the Italian Air Task Force, among others. But like I say, there is a half-millennia long break that is being paused today when the two men pray side by side. We will bring you those developments. We will continue to watch the arrivals as well of the King and Queen. Plenty more to come. The full story from Sky.
to include the best of prayers and choral traditions in the Catholic and the Anglican and the Church of England. So I think it's going to be a very significant moment for both the Catholic Church and for the United Kingdom.
We'll just allow those pictures to breathe for a moment. We're hearing music there. God Save the Queen anthem played there. Brendan Thompson, UK Director from Word on Fire. I'd like to talk to you just for a moment about the warmth that will be displayed today. There will be a closed-door meeting, we believe, for half an hour at least. What do you think will be the discussions and conversations there?
Yeah, this first meeting is with the Vatican's Secretary of State, Parolin. And so we think that they're going to talk about sustainability, care for creation. So they'll bring that meeting and that conversation to prayer in the Sistine Chapel afterwards. But it shows a thread of continuity. This has been on King Charles' hearts, you know, as Prince of Wales, and now, and also the late Pope Francis. This was a big concern of his, and this is being carried on. So it's a great thread of continuity, but also the historic nature of this visit, for what it means for Christian unity, is obviously going to be not only discussion for the day, but a cause for celebration for the entire day.
And that's a really important moment to reflect on, I think, today, that this meeting hasn't happened in almost 500 years. It's a great day of celebration and unification, Brendan. Yeah,
so in 1903, Charles's great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, wanted to go to Rome as monarch, but he was advised not to, so he made a visit to Leo XIII, so who Leo XIV is named after. So he had to go, and just since then, in the 100 years since that moment, there's been successive visits of Queen Elizabeth to various popes, to Prince Charles, but there's always been a note of caution, wanting to bring people along, and the sense of the reaction that it might bring. In fact, Queen Elizabeth II stopped Prince Charles attending a private mass with John Paul II, thinking it was too soon. So I think Charles, His Majesty, is to be commended really for pushing this move of unity forward. I think it's really on his heart, and as a proud Brit and a proud Catholic, I'm delighted to see this.
And Jack, to you for a moment, from your perspective inside the Catholic community, how is this visit being viewed?
Oh, I think it's been viewed with great affection. You know, that Catholics are looking at this event, which has not happened before, and thinking that there's going to be much more unity. I mean, both the Pope Leo and King Charles have been working to build bridges between denominations and religions and Christian, different Christian denominations, and this will be a very powerful symbol of their work coming together to pray together, to have a service of Vespers, to say those things, to be seen together, to speak English, because both are English speaking, native English speakers, which means that, you know, the understanding will be much closer. And so I think people are looking at that and feeling very good about it.
And I wonder your thoughts, Jack, and what message does it send, do you think, the choice of the Sistine Chapel for both men to pray?
I think this is a great choice. It's a very important space for Catholics. This is where popes have been elected for the last 600 years, and including Pope Leo the 14th, and a space of great holiness. And many Catholics in Britain and other countries will have been in the Sistine Chapel and looked at those paintings by Raphael, the Last Judgment, and been very moved by them. And I think the choice of this very striking place is really appropriate for such a big occasion. So I'm looking forward to the powerful images that we're going to see now when the service starts.
Brendan, I'd like to talk to you now and a bit about the theme of today, because we'll be talking about how symbolic and historic this is, and of course that's very important. But today's theme in particular, Brendan, care for creation, and of course it echoes, doesn't it, both Pope Leo and King Charles' long-standing care of the environment too.
Yeah, precisely. So Pope Francis a number of years ago released a document called Laudato Si, Care for Our Common Home. And so for many years, this has been a real priority at the Vatican, but also globally in the Catholic Church. And for many decades, this has been a priority of King Charles. So there have been many interactions in the past on this theme. So this theme of sustainability and care for creation doesn't come out of the blue and builds on decades of work. And of course, the King is coming not only as the King of England, but also as the head of state. So the Foreign Office is involved with this as well. And I think it shows the growing relationship between the Vatican and the UK, and trying to create influence when it comes to changing hearts and minds around sustainability.
And I think that's really important, Brendan, how significant this visit is, in particular, a personal note for the King, given his well-known interests, of course, in faith dialogue and interfaith dialogue too.
Yeah, he's been a real pioneer of this. One of the things that really comes to mind is you can't really think of two more symbolically weighted institutions than the papacy and the royal family, I mean, globally. So the fact not only that these two institutions are coming together in this way, but the symbolic nature, the Sistine Chapel, the theme, it's coming in this year as Catholics were celebrating the Jubilee year. So the theme is Pilgrims of Hope. And so I think the note that they want to strike with this, the personal note, is that this is a sign of hope. And, you know, there's so much going on in the world. There's so much going on in the church, in the royal family. But I think this day stands with a great sense of hope and optimism for the future. And I know the world sorely needs it.
And I wonder, Jack, to you now, and we spoke briefly, didn't we, about how this visit is being viewed within Rome, within the Vatican walls. But just reflect for me a moment at the sense of how the Vatican views the King in terms of a moral partner on global issues, like Brendan was reflecting just there.
Well, sure. As Brendan said, these two institutions, very old institutions, and they want to work together. When Pope Benedict was coming to the UK, we were hearing that the Vatican was seen as a crucial partner in the work of helping poor nations, you know, and promoting peace and concord among nations, because it has people everywhere, and it has the kind of messages that the UK, United Kingdom is keen on, and especially through the royal family. So I think this meeting is very important. Another thing that you just reminded me of was that when Pope Benedict was came to the UK, he said this several times, that religion is not a problem to be solved, but a vital contribution to the national conversation. This was like a motto of his visit. And I think we are seeing now, in the meeting between Pope and King, that religion is not a problem to be solved, as Pope Benedict said. It's vital that we have this conversation, that we use all the resources possible to build a better world together. And the Pope has a great deal of prestige. The monarchy and King Charles have a great deal of prestige, and a lot can be achieved by this conversation.
Brendan, that's so interesting, isn't it? The point that Jack makes there, that likely topics today will also surround climate change, will also be around migration, interfaith harmony, conflict resolution, which does shine a light on the types of characters the Pope and the King are.
Yeah, as both deeply religious figures, so they're not just political figures, they're religious figures. So they care about the needs of the world. And they're people with, because of the reach of the British government across the world, because of the reach of the Vatican across the world, they have a sense of being able to be advocates and voices for those in need and to use their platforms to do that. So Pope Leo's most recent document, the first document he's written as Pope Dilexi Te, is on the concern for the poor. So I think as we are living in a world where there is, increasing inequality in wealth, increasing degradation of the environment, I think it's really important that voices like the Pope, through his writing, through his teaching, through the visits that he chooses to make, the people that he makes, the messages he sends, that it all just contributes this, that those who are voiceless have their voices heard.
And Brendan, I wonder if we reflect, we're seeing pictures, of course, the Queen by the King's side there, and the Queen will separately visit the Pauline Chapel for a quiet moment of reflection. That's quite significant too.
Yes, so I mean, apart from the symbolic nature of it, I think personally there's so much that I hope that they personally benefit from this visit. So she's going to the Pauline Chapel and she'll be shown 2 frescoes of St. Peter and St. Paul by Michelangelo. So, the Vatican is so rich in all of this wealth that it has accumulated, not for itself, but so that it can share it with people. So it has millions of visitors every year. It uses these in order to share the beauty of deep history and heritage with the world. So I think it's wonderful. I hope that they really enjoy themselves in these services, in the receptions and everything that's going on today.
And Jack, your thoughts more broadly on the reception of the royal family today?
I think it's wonderful that being received in this way. I was just thinking that the one time I met the King, when he still was Prince of Wales, was at the canonization of Cardinal Newman there in Rome, and which he attended. And there he met various people, including Pope Francis. And one of the things he said was that Cardinal Newman, now St. John Henry Newman, was a very important Englishman who had contributed to wisdom in the whole world, but was an Englishman who was being honored by the Holy See. And that he had read a lot and thought he was very important. And now, in about a week, Cardinal Newman will be declared a doctor of the Church by Pope Leo, who's very keen on Newman. And there are only 38 doctors of the Church in history. So it's the most exclusive collection of people, of Catholics. And they are Catholics who have something to say to us. So Cardinal Newman, as an Englishman, has something really important to say to us about conscience, about education, about religion in an age of unbelief, etc., which Pope Leo is very keen to deepen into. And King Charles is also somebody who's very keen on Newman and wants to talk about. So I think this is a very happy coincidence that this visit is taking place just a few days before the declaration.
And Brendan, of course, this is King Charles' first full state visit to the Vatican as king, but previously he met Pope Francis, as Jack was saying there. That was in 2017. Of course, he was the Prince of Wales then. So always potentially leading to a moment like this, years in the making, potentially.
That's right. And of course, this visit is postponed from when it was meant to happen 5 or 6 months ago. But of course, Pope Francis was very, very ill. So King Charles privately with Queen Camilla visited Pope Francis in some of his dying days. And so this is the postponed state visit. So I think for a number of decades, Prince Charles, then Prince Charles and now King Charles, has made lots of visits to the Vatican. But not only with that, it's not just he only engages with Catholics when he's in Rome. In England, he's had many interactions with Catholic charities, has fought and advocated for those Christians who are persecuted throughout the world, has been and visited recently in Birmingham, as Jack was saying, Newman's, St. John Henry Newman's church that he founded there in Birmingham. So in many ways, he has had this really rich interaction. He's the first reigning monarch since the Reformation to attend a Catholic Mass publicly. Even his mother, Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen Elizabeth, didn't do that. She thought that was a step too far. But at the recent funeral of the Duchess of Kent, who was a famous Catholic convert from the monarchy, he went and led the royal family there himself only a month ago. So this is on the back of this. It feels like there's a lot of momentum, and this is a kind of crescendo moment in these kind of gestures of unity.
If you're just joining us here on Sky News, King Charles and Queen Camilla have arrived at the Vatican. They're meeting the Pope today, Pope Leo, on this very historic visit. The King arriving in a blue suit and the Queen wearing a veil. Brendan, talk to us about the timeline of today and how significant this day really is.
Sure. So we've seen some images, really moving images of the national anthem being played in the Vatican City. And so King Charles has been welcomed, and we'll be having some meetings now with the Cardinal Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin, where they'll likely talk about sustainability, care for creation, where they'll be talking about Christian unity. And then that meeting will lead to prayer. They'll go to the Sistine Chapel, of course, the place where the world was raptured by the conclave that elected Pope Leo. Then after that, there'll be the very historic visit going to one of the 4 major basilicas in Rome. So this is St. Paul outside the walls, with historic English connections to the Anglo-Saxon kings and queens. And there he'll be given this special title of royal confrator, which this confraternity, this connection, a royal patron of this basilica. And then he'll have a reception where he'll meet members of the English Catholic community who are based in Rome. So those who are training for the priesthood and various kind of English expats based in Rome. So a very full day with lots of encounters and meetings and rich, deep symbolism.
Jack, just let's reflect with you for a moment then. All of this obviously happens while the monarchy faces scrutiny over Prince Andrew. Does this cloud the visit, the tone of the visit, or are faith leaders able to separate, I suppose, the institution from the individual?
Well, I think that the king would have wished this not to be in the news at this particular time, but he is hoping, and we're all hoping, that this visit can overshadow controversies that have arisen, and that we can have a day of rest while looking at this very, very important encounter that is going to take place between the king and the Pope, and where many things of importance are going to be discussed, and which can be the beginning of things, you know. So yes, there are controversies, there always are, and particularly now as things have come up in the media, but this is what happens with any family, especially the royal family. There's always things in the media about them. I think that the king has great dignity, you know, in throughout these controversies, and this has helped. I think his great dignity has helped and will help him during this visit.
OK, we will leave it there for now. Jack Valero from Catholic Voices, and then Brendan Thomas, UK Director of Word on Fire, reflecting today the very historic meeting of King Charles and Queen Camilla and Pope Leo XIV. OK, we're going to take you back to the very latest pictures inside Vatican City as we saw King Charles arriving by car with the Queen inside Vatican City to meet Pope Leo on a historic day for the head of the Church of England and the head of the Catholic Church. A ceremonial guard of honour was formed by the Swiss Guard, and the band played God Save the Queen, of course, followed by the King, followed by the national anthem of the Vatican City too. There he is. We'll go live now to Vatican City and our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills. It's hard to put into words, isn't it, Rhiannon, how historic a day this is, but it's decades and decades in the making.
Oh, it's huge, and it could not be more important to King Charles. If you have ever followed any of his work, his visits, his engagements, you will know that interfaith dialogue has really been a pillar of everything that he's tried to achieve, both as Prince of Wales and now as monarch, and encouraging faiths to come together in discussion about a whole range of issues, I think is an important lasting legacy that he wants to make through his time as monarch, and something he wants to leave behind through his reign. So today, despite everything that's been going on over the last week regarding Prince Andrew, I think the palace are really hoping that we will, at least to some degree, focus on the historical significance of what we're seeing today. I was there outside the Apostolic Palace as we saw the King and Queen arrive for the start of this historic day. We didn't see Pope Leo, but we did see his representatives there to greet the King and Queen. The Queen, we weren't sure whether or not this would happen. She was wearing that distinctive mantilla, which is a sign of respect to the Pope. It's also protocol that visiting female dignitaries should wear one, but I think it is particularly pertinent that she has worn one. Also, if you talk to those who kind of know things about religious affairs, they will say that actually Camilla does know a lot about the Roman Catholic Church. After all, her first marriage was to a Catholic. Her daughter went to a Catholic school. So that's another aside to everything that's going on today. In the next hour or so, though, we're going to see the big moment, the big picture moment, if you like, of the day, where the King and the Pope will both attend a special ecumenical service inside the Sistine Chapel. So that means that representatives from both the Church of England and the Catholic Church will all come together to spend time together for that service. But it will be that key moment that will happen that we haven't seen for 500 years, since the Reformation, since King Henry VIII separated from papal control. We will see a monarch and pontiff praying alongside each other. It's also important to stress that the King is also here on behalf of the UK government. And actually yesterday, as the King landed, his spokesperson was very keen to point out why it's important that they make this state visit to the Holy See, saying at such times of global challenge, it has seldom been more important for Christian communities around the world to unite in faith and in fellowship with our partners. Of course, there continues to be that distraction of Prince Andrew. The palace today will be hoping that we don't see any further developments, but of course there is the jeopardy that we may.
And Rhiannon, we know there's a private closed-door meeting. We believe that's around 30 minutes or so. Just bring us up to date with what we think those likely topics will be between the King and the Pope.
It's always fascinating, I think, when you look at these state visits, because, of course, the King is sent here on behalf of the UK government, and you do always wonder how the two heads of state are going to get on. We know that King Charles was hugely fond of the previous Pope, Pope Francis. When they came here back in April, they were due to have this state visit to the Holy See, but because Pope Francis was unwell, that was unable to take place. But in the end, Charles and Camilla, they did sneak in to see him and spend some time with him. People, of course, will talk about Pope Leo being a different man. Of course, there won't be the difficulties when it comes to a language barrier, because both men do speak English, so that will kind of help, I suspect, with those conversations. People have said that Pope Leo, he's kind of has this quiet approach, which may well suit how Prince Charles is as well. But they have already got a lot in common, especially that issue around the environment and the climate crisis. There is no doubt they are going to talk about that today, probably both privately, but also publicly. We're going to see them attending a meeting together to talk about that issue. Particularly pertinent as well, because we've got the COP climate conference coming up in just over a week's time. But also it was put to me, and this was a really interesting point that I hadn't entirely kind of thought of until having this conversation yesterday with Cardinal Vincent Nichols, who is the head of England and Wales, the Catholic Church for England and Wales. And we were talking about the distraction that Prince Andrew has been. And as he said, look, when we come to pray before God, we talk about we think about difficult things going on in our lives. And it's not just the king who's got difficulties behind the scenes, it is also Pope Leo. And one of those difficulties is how both institutions confront an issue around historical abuse. So you do wonder whether or not privately the two men may engage in some kind of discussion about that matter as well.
Rhiannon, really, really interesting. Thank you so much. We will pop back with you throughout the morning, if that's OK. But I'd like to bring in our guests now. Still with us, I'm pleased to say, is Jack Valero from Catholic Voices and Brendan Thompson, the UK Director of Word on Fire. Brendan, for you, on a personal note, what does today's visit mean?
So I'm a proud Brit and a proud Catholic. I have to admit, I found it incredibly moving to hear the national anthem and to see it happening in the Apostolic Palace in the Vatican. And for someone who history means a lot, so symbolism, there's rich symbolism in my day-to-day life as a Catholic. Lots of the things I do have deep meaning and purpose. And so something like these two worlds colliding, my British identity and my Catholic identity, this expresses a deep desire in my heart to see a deeper union between the Christian churches in the face, because the world needs a united Christian witness. So I'm very happy and delighted in that. And also, I know many friends who are there. My friend is the rector of the Beda College, Father Marcus, will be hosting the King for a reception, which trains priests for across the Commonwealth. So I know that they're just going to have a wonderful reception. And I know the prayer in the Sistine Chapel, I imagine that's going to be a memory for King Charles and Queen Camilla and Pope Leo for life. And I know certainly, like, watching the images, they'll be burned in my heart and mind for many years to come. So just deeply moving. What a privilege to be alive for a time like this.
Thank you, Brendan. Jack, I wonder your take on the point that Brendan made there about the two men praying together side by side and how symbolic that will be.
I think it's very moving. I'm personally moved by it. I had heard that this would be the first time since the Reformation, but since then I've heard that it may be the first time ever, because kings didn't used to come to pray with the Pope in the past when they were united either. And I'm thinking of the symbolism of unity this shows. Pope Leo is very keen on Christian unity. He's going to Nicaea later in the year. Nicaea is the place where the first council of the United Church, when Christianity was united, took place in 325, 1700 years ago exactly, to define who Christ was. And lots of people are going to Nicaea from all denominations, and Pope Leo will be there. And King Charles has been very keen on building bridges between faiths and between denominations. So I think this will be a big thing to talk about between them, but also to show in an image, a picture paints 1,000 words, and to see the two men side by side praying the Vespers, listening to the choral music, which will bring the best of the two traditions together. This will be a very powerful moment of unity, which is so close to their hearts.
And Brendan, a real moment also, I wonder if you agree, because we're seeing growing inter-Christian cooperation, particularly recently. And I wonder whether you think today will be perhaps a turning point in that practical collaboration, perhaps.
Well, this is something I've seen in my life. As someone who's in their mid-30s, I guess I've lived in a context that's been built upon the collaboration that has come before me, in a sense. One of the things I'm most proud to do is that I'm a trustee of the Bible Society, of which His Majesty is the patron, and I'm one of two Catholics on the board. It's an Anglican charity which began in Britain but has got Bible societies, increasing access to the Bible across the world. I know it's one of the charities the King chose to continue with. And I have appreciated those moments where I can interact with other Christians, where we have common cause and common mission. And I went recently to Farm Street. This is a church in central London, and King Charles was there for the charity Aid to the Church in Need, for an Advent service, a last Advent, because that's another issue. We're talking about the persecuted church. So having this kind of global perspective where one part of the body of the church, the body of Christ, suffers, we all do. And he's been a great advocate for bringing attention to that. They're both, the Pope and the King, men who want to see an increase of peace, an increase of Christian identity that can speak into the suffering, so the kind of social issues in the world, and also sustainability. So I think there's so many a constellation of themes that have been brought together today.
And Brendan, in terms of communication, how do you think the Vatican and the monarchy potentially might use the imagery from today to speak to people who aren't religious at all? Is that something that will be in their minds today?
Yeah, I think of two huge religious events recently. They affected people even who weren't religious. The most televised event in human history was the funeral of King Charles's mother, the late Queen Elizabeth. I think there's 4 billion people who watched it. You know, a funeral liturgy, a service, a ritual. And then there was the conclave that we had recently, and the great interest, even from lots of my non-religious friends who were either delighted, like, I'm glad you've got a pope, or intrigued by the symbolism. I think sacred signs and symbols have a way of speaking powerfully to the things we can't put into words. You know, they express this desire to want to grow in unity, that the wound that's been created by division within the church, that this is a powerful symbol that points towards how can we grow in collaboration. It's not easy, it doesn't erase differences, but these are gestures and symbols that indicate wanting to continue to take steps forward and building on the steps that have been taken in the past. So I think the symbolism of today, I don't think it's just kind of fluff or pomp or ceremony, or sometimes the way that, you know, sacred things can be dejected. But I think these things mean things because we live our lives as if what we do, the things we choose, the symbols that we have in our lives have meaning. And so I think the sacred elements of today, the rituals, the symbols, I think will have an effect. They will cause conversations. Maybe it means that churches, a Catholic church that hasn't interacted with its local Anglican church in a random village in England, will be inspired by this and have conversations and have common cause and try and model some of the conversations. I'd love to see some of that happen as a result of this.
Jack, to you now, and I wonder if we can talk about the prayer that will happen later today with the King and Pope. What will that look like? It will be in the Sistine Chapel, but talk us through what people will see and what they will hear.
Well, it will be a service of Vespers, and it includes prayers, it includes readings from the Bible, it includes hymns that are sung, and there's beautiful arrangements that the Anglican Church has in its tradition that will be used during the service this evening and this morning. And so this will be a service of prayer and music. I was just thinking also about Christianity in the UK, and Brendan mentioning the Bible Society, of which the King is a patron, because they recently launched a report from a survey they had done some months ago, in which they said that there'd been an increase in the number of people interested in Christianity between 2018 and 2024, and that the biggest increase had been among Generation Z, between those aged 18 to 25, and especially among men. So there seemed to be an increase in interest in religion from people who perhaps haven't had a religious upbringing, and who are now looking at Christianity and saying, well, I'm interested in looking into this and seeing if it's good for me. Perhaps there's also an effect from celebrities who are Christian now, who are maybe footballers or other sports people, or celebrities in the media who say they are Christian. But in any case, there's some marked effect among young people. So I think that this is something that the king will know, and about this happening in Britain. Similar things are happening in other countries, which the Pope will know. So when they talk about Christianity and its life in Europe, this could be one of the topics they talk about, you know, the resurgence of Christianity among the young, which is something that makes the church healthy and young and forward-looking.
Yeah, that's a conversation that's been had across the world. Brendan, can I bring you in for a moment now? Because shortly we will be seeing pictures of the King meeting the Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin. And I wonder your thoughts on the role the Cardinal plays in Vatican diplomacy today.
Yeah, so the Vatican and the royal family are used as they're great actors on the geopolitical stage globally, aren't they? So think of the King's role in hosting President Trump when he came over for state visit to the UK and to, you know, historically to Windsor Palace. But also think of the Pope's role. So Pope Francis helping to kind of broker negotiations and peace in the Sudanese civil war, or you know, way back in 2013, I think, when Pope Francis helped to kind of, with the opening of thawing of relations between Cuba and the US. And so you just think there's lots of form in the Vatican. The Vatican is often able to host conversations, go to places, do things because, as has been said before, the church is present across the globe. It's able to have these conversations, but also what it means is that it's got insights. It's able to hear. So someone like Cardinal Parolin, who's the Secretary of State for the Vatican, you know, has this reach across the world, able to hear, to call up ambassadors all across the world, as is any country. So it'd be interesting, and I think they'll be able to have a more integrated conversation, because he's not only a political figure, Secretary of State, but he's a religious figure. So not only can they talk about, say, sustainability and creation, but as a religious person, you see everything is connected: God, creation, other people. So you don't see sustainability disconnected from social justice issues and from the concern of the poor and, you know, from people's suffering. You don't see it disconnected from the way people are spiritually hungry and the need for meaning and purpose, which is often bereft in people's lives for various reasons. So I think Cardinal Parolin, being both a political and a religious figure, offers this, I think, great hybrid, as is the King, who's a political and religious figure. So I hope it's a really rich conversation, an integrated conversation.
And Jack, really interesting point that Brendan makes there, because on one level, this isn't just about faith, is it? It's about diplomacy, it's about history, it's also about image.
Yes, and it's about diplomacy and image. Diplomacy, as Brendan said, the Holy See has ambassadors all around the world. So does the United Kingdom. The ambassadors of the Holy See, who are nuncios, who are bishops, they often have another different view that may not be available to political ambassadors from other countries, and that's why the United Kingdom is very keen to work with the Holy See in different countries. And one of the things that came up in Pope Benedict's visit was that religion is not a problem to be solved, but a vital contribution to the national conversation. And I think religion has a lot to offer, both in Britain and abroad. And the United Kingdom, in its action in the country and in its action in other countries, there's a lot that can be done together. Religion is a voice. Even if many people don't follow the Catholic Church, we do see the Catholic Church as a voice that is saying important things about society that can be a great contribution to the national conversation. And this helps through all the wisdom that the Church gathers through its bishop, nuncios, ambassadors throughout the world, and through people coming to the Holy See to speak. So there will be lots of visitors throughout the year who come to see Cardinal Parolin and the Pope, and they will give information and views that can then be used to promote peace around the world and to fight extremism and to relieve poverty. You know, all the aims that the Catholic Church and the United Kingdom agree on totally. And so that's great work.
And Jack, we're just seeing pictures of Vatican City, people arriving, gathering to watch this historic day. And to your point, I suppose, you know, for millions of believers worldwide, this moment, it really speaks of hope, of reconciliation potentially. And for so many believers, of enduring power of faith, doesn't it? I mean, what does it mean to you today? And what do you think the atmosphere will be like there in Vatican City?
Oh, it will be, it must be an amazing atmosphere. This has already come up in the conversation, but there is a lot of persecution of Christians around the world, which is often hidden because of the way it takes place or whatever. But it's something that the Pope often speaks about, and the King often speaks about. He attended a service recently of Aid to the Church in Need, as we had, where they spoke about persecution of Christians. So the fact that we're getting these images here, and the fact that people are going there to take part in this historic meeting, which can speak to the world at large about the values that we share, about tolerance, about living together, about tackling this persecution in the countries where unfortunately it takes place, I think will make people really happy to be there and to, you know, to be close to these two people that many people admire.
Okay, Jack, thank you very much. We're just seeing some of the latest pictures from the Vatican now. This is the Swiss Guard. These were some of the Swiss Guards that greeted King Charles as he was driven into Vatican City at the top of this hour. King Charles and Queen Camilla have arrived at the Vatican. And later today, two of the world's most recognised figures, one royal, King Charles, one spiritual, Pope Leo XIV, coming together for a rare and deeply symbolic moment. We'll bring you all of the very latest as and when we get it here on Sky News. Brendan, to you, if you had a sentence to sum up today's meeting and what it says about faith's role, particularly addressing the global crisis that we see around the world, what would it be?
That these men who represent Christ represent a Christ who is close, who wants people to be close.
And Brendan, it's one of those moments that will be beamed around the world for the millions of believers. How important is today?
It's hugely significant. I think this is a time to be utterly delighted to be a British Catholic. You know, our forebears in centuries past could never have imagined a moment like this. They might have dreamed for it, they might have wished for it, but never imagined it actually happened. And just as we were looking at those images of Vatican, of the Vatican before, you see those columns that go out around, almost like they're by the sculptor Bernini. They're meant to be arms, the arms of Bernini bringing in the entire world. Jesus, before he died in the garden, he prayed this prayer of saying, that they may be one. You know, okay. I pray to the Father, they may be one. So I hope that this is a step towards that, as a recognition of the growing unity.
Thank you very much. We'll have more later and reflect on these live pictures.